We're live now, yeah.
Good morning. This is the decision-making meeting for the executive member covering regulatory services, licensing, land and property, and contracting and procurement. Welcome everybody to the meeting. The first item on the agenda today is the monitoring report. Everybody's had a copy of that. Mr. Mulholland, Ian, do you want to say anything, or anybody else?
It's been comprehensively gone through by officers again, and once again thank to Andrew as well, and it came to follow, so it came a few days ago. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just before I say a few words as I note the report, are there any members, councillors, who need to say anything about this or raise any questions? Just raise your hand or speak into the microphone if I'm missing you in any way. Thank you. Okay, I am noting this. I want to let members know that there are 8 update items and to draw your attention to a few of them. So you've got the 27/4/21 land at former Horwich Leisure Centre. This has moved to the development phase, and so it's with the regeneration officers, regeneration team. Then you've got 26/7/21. That's previous additional funding. That's a capital matter on this paper at Little Lever Hub/New Library. Then you've got another couple that are very similar, 29/11/2022, Car Park Horwich Health and Leisure, 22/3/23 Horwich Health Hub. That also moves to the development phases, and so that's with the regeneration team now presently. And then just 2 more. You've got your 19/9/23 sales of land for housing in the Halliwell and Great Lever area, and that's a water culvert issue. And then also last one, 10/10/23 52 Washacre West Horton community asset transfer, and you've got an update there about how completion. They're completing the matter of how to implement a CAP procedure that's important for the council. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. We can move on to the next item, which is the corporate resources budget, and that's Q3. Over to Janet Pollard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howarth. So this is the Q3 finance report for the whole of the Directorate of Corporate Resources. The Directorate's currently projecting a year-end underspend of £42,000. For this portfolio, the underspend is £20,000. There are no significant variances to report for this portfolio. The key financial findings can be found on page 3, and the service-specific findings can be found on page 11, which is Appendix A. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the contents of the report and to approve the recommendations in section 11 of this report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Janet. Do any members on the call today have anything they want to say about this budget pertaining to my portfolio? I'd be grateful, or raise any questions. Nobody's indicating. Okay, I'm going to go to the paper, the front page. I'm going to note the Q3 financial position of this directorate, but I'm going to approve the revisions made to the capital programme which fall under this portfolio. Now that is 5.14 on this paper. You'll find the 2 items: computer refresh programme to the value of £250,000 to replace the public access computers in libraries across the library network, funded by reserves, that's property, and also a central library virtual tour of £12,000 to be funded by external grant monies, that's listed as property. I also on this paper authorise the Director of Corporate Resources, who's with us, to call off under any available frameworks to enable the capital programme to progress, and I also note the key findings of the report. Thanks very much, Janet, and everybody who works on the finances. The next item on the agenda today is the Place Directorate budget, Q3, and that's Janet, Mrs. Pollard. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you again, Councillor Howarth. So this report is the Q3 finance report for the whole of the Directorate of Place. The Directorate is currently projecting a year-end variance of £685,000. For this portfolio, there is an underspend of £50,000. Key financial findings can be found on page 3 and service-specific findings can be found on page 17, which is Appendix 2. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the contents of the report and also to approve the recommendations in section 7. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, no members have indicated to say anything or raise questions. Please do if you want to at any point. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the front sheet of this finance report, Directorate Place Q3. I'm going to note this financial position, Q3. Then there are no approvals for me for revisions made to the capital programme which fall under this portfolio, and on this paper it's regulatory services and licensing, and the capital sums there are zeros. I am going to, should it be needed, or provide authorisation, should they be needed, to the Director of Place to call off any available framework to enable the capital programme to progress. Okay, and again, note the key findings of the report. So thank you very much, Janet and the finance team, much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Howard.
Yeah. And the next item we're going to move to is item Montcliff Quarry in Horwich, the lease. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Andrew Williamson, the Assistant Director. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Councillor. So the report here is for a recommendation, Councillor, to surrender the lease for Montcliff Quarry and put in place a new lease. From time to time, the council undertakes a review of lease arrangements, particularly at the point where contractually there's a window to introduce new arrangements. And this is what council officers have been reviewing, along with liaising with Armstrongs, particularly Armstrongs Aggregates Limited. And the situation is that we have a lease in place that dates back to 2011. This is specifically for Montcliff Quarry, close to Horwich, and we have, in those terms, coverage of 64 acres. That's the property area. And every March and October, there's a window to update the lease arrangements by putting in place a brand new lease. So in fact, we have seen a situation where the previous legal entities associated with the old lease have in fact been dissolved. Those are GCN Limited and also the financial guarantor, who happen to be Armstrong's, I think, Environmental Services. Those were dissolved as legal entities, but rent continues to be paid by the overall company of Armstrongs, and we are productively liaising with Armstrongs to agree a new lease directly with Armstrongs Aggregates Limited. The term of the lease would be for 15 years and at £62,000, I believe, for the annual rental, which would be a significant increase on current terms, but reflective of the commercial value to Armstrongs that exists at Montcliff Quarry. Armstrongs have a planning permission that extends into the 2030s, and the lease that we are recommending here for approval is consistent with those planning terms. I believe that is a fair summary, Councillor, so I'd like to hand back to you, please.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Yes, it's a very well set out paper with a lot of information that explains all the change here that I'm being asked to approve. Do any councillors on the call want to say anything or raise any questions about this at all today? Okay. Not presently, so I'm going to move to the decision. So I'm going to approve the delegation. This is about the surrender and new lease at Montcliff Quarry, Horwich, to the current occupier Armstrong's Aggregates Limited. Okay, so I'm delegating authority to the Director of Corporate Resources in consultation with the Borough Solicitor to surrender, negotiate and conclude the new lease for Montcliff Quarry, Horwich, and any related documents and notices. The lease details are at 2.1 to 2.13 on this paper, along with wider information about the quarry on the paper. I also authorise the Borough Solicitor, the Borough Treasurer first actually, to deal with any financial formalities, and then I authorise the Borough Solicitor to complete the necessary legal formalities. So thanks very much everyone who's done that work. Very grateful. The next item on the agenda today is Kersley Community Centre, and I'm going to hand over to Mr. Williamson, to Andrew, please. Thank you.
Thanks again, Councillor. So this report and recommendation relates to what has up until very recently been known as Zach's Youth Centre, and it's in the area of Kersley. It's a property which we had identified in 2022 as one where we had the intention of disposing of the property via community asset transfer, or CAT, and that is because the previous occupant of the property vacated the property, unfortunately, I think mid-2022. And so the property is vacant at the moment. Since the approval of the community asset transfer in December 2022, there's been an increasing level of awareness of actually the potential actual need for a council owned community facility in Kersley. And much of the report goes to highlight the fact that relative to other areas of the borough, Kersley has actually very, very little council-owned facilities. And the report lists examples of those, for instance, no town hall, no current community centre, etc. And it is quite an exception. And through the course of the last, I suppose, 16, 18 months, it's become abundantly clear that we potentially should be using this particular property to have it as a council-owned community centre, and one working with local ward councillors for appropriate usage of that centre. Now, it is a vacant property, and it is one which has a need for minor repairs. You'll see detail in the report that suggests that those repairs could be carried out for under £10,000. There is damage to part of the roof with water ingress, which is also affecting, for instance, the ceiling as part of the interior of the building. But it's believed that those could be addressed as part of remediating the property and preparing it for normal usage. So the recommendation in this report is to remove the property from the community asset transfer list, and periodically we do review lists like this, and that list was approved in December 2022, so it is quite a timely moment for us to properly consider this matter. We will be bringing a separate report and recommendations to you, Councillor, on the overall list, but we do understand that there is quite a demand and pressing rationale with regard to this particular property. In recognition that the previous occupant and leaseholder for the property was called Zach's, we refer in this report to Kersley Community Centre to reflect that it would be used for the area of Kersley in general. So with that, I think that's a fair summary of the report, Councillor, and I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much for the report on this matter. Do any members, councillors on the call, or any others want to raise questions or speak? Councillor Cowan, Amy, please.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. I just wanted to ask, first of all, I would say I think it would be great for Kersley to have their own community centre and a council maintained property in the ward. I just wanted to ask, there's clearly an impact on the capital budget with regard to, first of all, taking the property off the community asset transfer list, and also the repairs that have been highlighted and indicated that would be required to be done to the property, which is fine. I'm just wondering about also implications for the revenue budget. This will be a council maintained property. Has consideration been given to the implications on the revenue budget going forwards? For example, will the we might be going slightly out of the remit of this portfolio, I don't know, but will the community centre be staffed, for example? And obviously you've got ongoing maintenance and upkeep and everything. So I just wanted to ask about that. Thank you.
No problem. Mr. Williamson.
Of course, and that's a great question, Councillor. Thank you very much for raising that. We have given consideration to the financials, absolutely. Within the report, there's a small section under financials which highlights that, of course, we would be experiencing an opportunity cost in the sense that we would not be leasing the property out. We have considered this in light of the fact that over the last couple of years, the overall corporate property lease portfolio has been able to make some improvements to counterbalance some of the financial pressures that this might introduce. But it also acknowledges quite an exceptional circumstance in Kersley that there simply isn't a council-owned facility for the benefit of the local population and community. And so it's a considered cost and acknowledgement that there is a cost to the council of providing such a facility and service. Now, in terms of the way that would be operationalised, that is something that we would come to after the decision is taken, and we would give all due consideration to ways of supporting revenue in the future, whether that might mean allowing some of the space to be rented out in the future to local groups or other opportunities. But that's something that we'll be actively looking at.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, Tracy. Hi. You're muted, Tracy.
I turned my camera on, but not my mute.
Sorry.
Councillor Cowan got in there before me. I'm actually a ward councillor for Kersley. And obviously, you've spoken really well, Andrew, about our need in Kersley for, sorry, my voice is really bad this morning, a need for some community asset buildings in Kersley. I know we've got something underway with the bowling club as well, possibly, but there is a massive need in Kersley for something, for a space, you know, for councillors to even have a surgery and, you know, people to meet together. There is a massive need for it, really is. One of my questions was about revenue as well going forward, and you did slightly touch on it, Andrew, at the end. A suggestion from myself was about trying to get our community involved. Since that building became vacant, I can't tell you how many emails I've had in relation to it from the community, wanting it to turn into something for the community. You know, there's a lady she wants to run a cafe from there, you know. So it's that scope of revenue of, yeah, there is going to be some revenue needing from the council, but let's speak to the community, let's do consultation, let's see who's out there and who's willing to invest in that building, because I really think people in Kersley would invest in that building. I could probably give you a list of 10 people straight away you to go and speak to. So it's something like that. When we get to that point, we need to really strongly consider those sort of things. And then the final thing you just mentioned about the name. So being a Kersley girl, names are really important in this area. We're a bit of a I would say a divided but not divided community sometimes. So when people come together, they really come together, but the people are really proud about names. So obviously we have the Kersley, the central part of Kersley, and then we have the villages, Prestonleigh, Stoneclough and Ringley. And people really, really get upset when something's not referred to properly. So just one thing to consider, referring it to as Kersley Community Centre probably won't go down very well because it's not in what they would class as Kersley, so it's in Prestonleigh. So that's just something to be mindful of when referring to this building, that I just thought I'd mention and throw in there.
I'm very grateful you've mentioned that, because we did tend to, or I certainly referred to it often as Zach's Centre Prestonleigh, because I always need to be reminded where things are in whether it's main Kersley or three villages, or you know, or in the three villages of Kersley, as I call it. So thank you very much for that contribution. I'm going to move to make the decision, and just to say that obviously I've been supporting this decision because of the benefit that we get from this, weighed against the matters that have been raised, such as how this impacts on our capital budget and the smallish spend on repairs and so on. And I think we've heard a strong case today about the revenue consequences of the building. So I'm going to move to the decision. I'm going to authorise the Director of Corporate Resources to remove Zach's Youth Centre from the Community Asset Transfer list, authorise the Director of Corporate Resources to agree and implement all related arrangements to enable, on here it's called Zach's Youth Centre, to be used as a council-owned, local community centre. If I say Community Centre Prestonleigh Kersley, okay, authorise the Borough Solicitor to complete any necessary legal formalities, and authorise the Borough Treasurer to complete any necessary financial arrangements. So thank you very much indeed.
Okay, Kath, I'll stop the recording if that's okay with you.
I just want to say that we have one more item, but it is judged by our monitoring officer to be a confidential item. So yes, I'm very grateful, Ian. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that now, just a minute.